Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming over and watching this video. Today I'll be servicing this 16520 Rolex Daytona. Has a 40-30 movement. Almost vintage now. This is the model that has the inverted 9, the 6 and the 9, which I'm pointing to on the hour counter, are in the same orientation. Here's the model number, 16520. Pretty good watch. I remember years ago you could find these for about $9,000-$10,000. Now I think they're worth a lot more, and service one of these every once in a while. I did have a comment on one of my previous videos asking if I could demonstrate how to disassemble the pushers, so we're going to see that. I'm doing a full overhaul on this watch, but this is a short video, so I'll just be uncasing the movement, disassembling the case. You'll see the movement disassembled part by part. You'll be able to recognize some of the issues just by looking at the movement. So just doing a voiceover here, and I'm just going to be talking as I go over the footage that I've taken. So you can see here there's some rust and debris around the barrel. When you wind the watch, you could really hear what's going on. So what am I doing here? First things first, take off the oscillating weight. You're going to have to bear with me as sometimes the focus gets in and out. So just like that, oscillating weight is off. Move it to the side. See what else we got going on here. All the stuff on the top layer, the chrono function, and that right there, which I'm pointing to, is the detent. Pull the crown out into setting position. Then you want to push down on the detent there. You can see it's like a little button. So crown in setting position. Push down on the detent, and you're able to pull the crown and stem out. Now go ahead, identify where the case screws are. Get one there, another one down there. I just go ahead and remove those. Excuse me. Must be the allergies. I want to make sure I'm putting everything off to the side, keeping track of all the parts. Now, flip it over, and the movement comes right out of the case. Can put the stem back in. Still goes into winding and setting position. And now we can take a closer look at the dial. Nice black dial. I like how the rings around the subdials are faded to that cream color. And you can see a little texture on the glossy black dial. I don't know what that is. Just a little more patina. Some character over the years. Maybe there's some type of action happening under the paint causing it to bubble up, but it's nice and even and it looks pretty good. So set that aside for later. I'll have to take the hands off, but now I'll prep the case for some polishing. This watch was serviced some point, I believe maybe 2004 or 2014, I can't remember, but it's due for servicing. Pushers. Start, stop, and reset pushers. So to take these out, there's a screw slot right there. Lock your screwdriver in. And carefully screw it out. Not the most glamorous example on how to do it, but I believe I show a better angle next. So inside the pusher there's a spring, and inside going through the case is this post that's threaded into the pusher. There's also a couple gaskets on that post. There's one there you could see, and the other one is actually inside the case. I decide to put the movement away. I make sure I keep track. This one is the start and stop pusher, goes on the top side of the case. I want to make sure that I keep those separated just in case they are slightly different. I like to make sure I put them back where I took them from in the first place. But here's a better angle. You can see more of the case. And there you go. Got the little spring in there. That's it, nothing to it. Nothing to it but to do it.
Okay, so we will return the watch to playground. See, it's 7400 Shiloh RGG. And then Santa Ross CA 95403. Okay, so are you going to pay for the shipping now? Yeah.
Now we do have these little covers where the pushers were, and now you can remove these with a tool, but the way that they're threaded into the case, the threads are so thin and they should be locked tight in there anyways, so you have a really high chance of damaging the threads, removing that part of the pusher, so I just keep them there. I do cover them up when polishing the case though. Now it's time to remove the bezel. This is a very common way to remove the bezel. With a razor blade wedged between the bezel and the case. Tap it down in there with your hammer. And now you want to flex the razor blade in this way. You don't want to flex the sharp point of the blade going up because you don't want to scratch the outside of that chapter ring. You just want the bezel to lift off of it. And you can see a little debris, maybe some sweat has gotten underneath that bezel. And you can see there's no damage done to the case from using that technique. And the crystal can just come out like that. So, looks like we got the case fully disassembled. Pushers are out, bezel is off. Pretty simple. Here we have the bracelet. Bracelet's in pretty good shape for the age of the watch. It's probably like a 30-year-old watch now. So this is the prep I do before removing the hands. I put a little drop of oil on the hub of each hand, and I put the watch on a heater just to warm it up. Sometimes these hands are very tight and you have to use a lot of force to pull them off. Sometimes they bend or break. Sometimes the hub snaps off. So It was a very difficult procedure getting those hands off, but now that the hands are off, we can take a closer look at the movement. And disassembling part of the dial side, the setting mechanism, and now we are taking apart layers on the movement side. Take off the bridge, see the hammers, intermediate wheels, take off the auto, the reversers. These are the minute counters, intermediate wheel counters, castle wheel, column wheel, whatever you want to call it. Now a lot of the operating levers, intermediate lever, wheel for seconds counter, and all the good stuff that make this watch what it is. And you can see some of the debris and wear happening. That's what happens when the watch hasn't been serviced in quite some time. Parts dry out and they start having wear. Now you can really see what we're working with. A lot of debris, a lot of issues with the winding and setting. This is a intermediate pinion for auto. You can see that the pinion is snapped off. We have a new wheel right next to it. This is the winding pinion that connects to the stem, shredded wheels. And now I actually have cleaned all the parts and reassembled the base movement. Have a little slow-mo of the balance wheel going back and forth. Got a lot of good amplitude there. Really had to get this watch done, so there's not much more I could share with you besides a few worn out parts that basically just get replaced with new ones. There's not any real trick in repairing anything like this. You just need a new part to replace the old ones. But it is fun to watch, so hope you're enjoying. But you could really see how clean it is. There's no debris around the barrel. As I get the movement assembled, you can see I'm starting, stopping, and resetting the chronograph. And I'll show you everything that goes into that in a minute. Now the seconds counter is running. That's the wheel right in the center. And what I'm waiting for is the seconds counter to go all the way around and advance the minute counter. Seconds wheel turns. Now I watched this go around a few times actually. That's a reset. You can see the seconds counter stopped. Seconds counter there. And that's the reset. Start. Stop and reset. So when I start it, you can see the intermediate wheel dropping down to the center wheel, activating the stopwatch. Now here is a big window where you can see the wheel turning. Now when you see the little window coming around, there's a small beak that's underneath that wheel, and as it turns, it's going to advance the intermediate wheel right next to it, and that's going to advance the minute counter. So let's just see that again. Stop it and reset it. Start. The wheel engages. Now I do this a few times just so you can see. That's the little window, and we're waiting for that to come all the way around again. It takes a minute for it to come around. And when that window comes around, the little beak advances the intermediate minute counter wheel. So you can see it right there. The little beak is coming. It's going to advance that wheel, which will trip that wheel. So here it comes. You should start seeing that beak in that little window coming around right now. Boom. That's it. And that's about as good as it gets. I know it's a little bit hard to see. And I stop it. Everything disengages and the seconds counter stops. Seconds counter stopped. And now I'm assuming I reset it. There we go, a nice reset. Stop, start, reset, start, stop, reset.
Oh, to remind yourself where the hands go.
And now that the hands are on, you can see the watch working in real time. Starting the seconds runner. Now a lot of people run these watches thinking that
take a lot of
the seconds hand in the middle is the real seconds hand, but the seconds hand in the middle is just for the stopwatch function. You have your hour hand, your minute hand, and then your seconds hand is actually on the sub-dial
so long.
at 9 o'clock.
I don't even know where the hands.
That's a traditional chronograph. Then for the stopwatch, you have your seconds counter. Is actually the center seconds, and your minute counter is at 3 o'clock sub-dial, and hour counter is at the 6 o'clock sub-dial. But you can see start stopping and resetting, how quick everything resets and stays lined up. check the division of the hands. Make sure none of the hands are touching each other. You want to make sure when that hour hand goes around that it doesn't have any contact with your subdial hands. And it should be problem free. In the hand category. Now I should start and stop this watch long enough to watch the minute counter go around. So let's see if that's what I do. Oh, I guess I didn't.
I remember my best buddy growing up, they had a leg.
Now,
right
replacing the
on
gaskets on the tube
Oh man.
and relock tight the threads for the tube.
All like the light switches.
The watch has been
the
polished.
wiring
You
was
can
all
see
added after
the
cabinet
lugs have
was
been
built. Everything was
refinished.
inside the wall.
So you sealed it like that.
But even
Make
the
sure
light
the
switch
tube
was
is nice
boxed
and tight.
on the outside of the wall. The whole box that had the switch and everything in it on the outside of the wall.
I do have a little trick coming up,
Good pattern, super cool. And you go out and
how I
just
install
try it all
the
day long. I'll say what
gaskets for the pushers.
Small or small cabin or
It's 2-story.
So the
Okay.
tube gasket gets a gasket in between the tube and the case. It gets 2 more gaskets inside the tube.
Oh damn.
It gets 1 gasket on the outside of the tube and another gasket inside the crown.
They built so much in front.
But what I'm going to show you here is how I install
No, this one was on the north.
the pusher gaskets.
So,
I have an old spring bar tube, and I slide the gasket onto the tube with the tweezers like that. Then I take that little threaded portion of the pusher, slip it into the spring bar tube, and slide the gasket over so it can drop into that channel. It actually makes it a lot easier. And then here is the second gasket. It doesn't have its own channel to go into, so it's easy just like
Now,
that.
every time I just drove by,
Now I just
it was beautiful.
put it right back in there. And you can see the tip of it right there.
What was that? When
But
drove
before I
to-
do that, I am going to grease up that gasket. And now that they're in, you can see how far they stick out. You also want to Loctite these threaded portions so your pushers don't accidentally fall off. I don't really think there's enough room for those screws to back out anyways though, so. But it's still good practice to Loctite your threads. And this is how I do it. Got a little Loctite on there. I put a little grease on this knurling. Add a little bit more waterproof protection. Maybe give the pusher more of a chance to get depressed smoothly. Nice and greased up all the way around. Push it down in there. And screw it down. And give it some nice torque at the end. And there we go. Pusher installed. Screw it down. And it's locked. We got one more to do here. We do it the same exact way as the last. Just like that. Now we got the movement installed. Watch winds. Unscrew the pushers. Start, stop, resets just fine in the case. What I like to do now is add a little bit of grease where the pusher actually meets the operating levers on the movement. That's where most of the pressure gets. That's where it all starts, so I just want to make sure that that's getting hit nice and smoothly. Now make sure I fumble and grease the channel for the case back. Install the case back gasket just like that. Make sure the inside of the case back is nice and clean. And I'll add a little fumbling to those threads so that the case back doesn't seize up once it's tightened down. So I'll just finger tighten it first. And make sure that that Rolex crown logo, I marked it with a red Sharpie there. Got to make sure that that little etched logo is at 6 o'clock. And now I'm installing the bezel. That needs to be lined up perfectly as well. And this is our case press. You set it there, and I use this flat piece to get the bezel nice and level. Once that's pressed down level with the crystal, take the die and squeeze the entire bezel down all the way to the case. Make sure I check it. I want the bezel to be sitting nice and flat. I don't want the gasket to be folded. And there we have it. Looking good. You can see a nice light polish, high polish on the bezel, nice satin finish on the top of the lugs, and a high polish on the sides of the case. Got the line finish on the case back. All the gaskets, pushers functioning. Looks real good. Now, bracelet polished, back onto the watch. There wasn't any repair I needed to do on the bracelet, and I wiped down the watch with some alcohol, get rid of that red Sharpie. You might be able to see the etching in the crystal at 6 o'clock. Rolex crown. Do a little start, stop, and reset test inside the case. I want to see that seconds counter go all the way around, and I want to watch that minute counter jump. That 3 o'clock subdial needs to make it all the way around. Yeah, a little light polish. This watch is kind of banged up. Not bad for probably around a 90s model Rolex Daytona 16520. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. And here we will see a half jump and then a complete full jump, that minute counter. Boom. Here we go. So it's all working. I will stop it and reset it. And then I'll let the watch run for another few days. Chrono on and chrono off. Make sure the timing's just right. And the counters are keeping track for the chronograph. So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed, like and subscribe. You'll see some more videos coming up. Nice watch. Let me know what you want to see next. I'll try and squeeze it in. Peace out.